it's a workshop. So I don't know if that means record or open it up or Zoom or whatever happens.
I don't think it does.
Feel free. Our
I don't
time
think
to
it
our
does.
camera people.
Okay, I think, but the other tabs are blank.
Yeah, I don't know, I had trouble with it. Okay, well, this is good.
I mean, I did the best I could to
Yeah,
get
okay.
it on one page.
Yeah, well, no,
Okay.
this is okay. Good.
Okay?
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
And you have two separate links, right? One for the workshop, one for the meeting, so just
We
keep an
need-
eye out for Mandy. So
Yeah,
she
because we've
zooms in.
started.
Okay, I will. Yep, it's on, she's going to be calling in, right?
Yep, yep, and we've already started, so
Okay,
this is all
okay.
on camera. All right, so I'm glad that we have a little bit of an opportunity to just assess our Board of Ed interactions and goals, et cetera. So you got some questions that I sent ahead of time, and there's several of them. So Ruth, are you good at keeping time?
I can.
Okay. So, first question is, to what extent did we achieve our Board of Ed goals from last August? So Lucille has attached them to one of the documents that we have, but they are, as you might have expected, completely COVID-centered. And it's also, to my understanding, the first time the Board of Ed actually wrote down annual goals that aren't in some bylaw. They're more specific to this year. So, if you look them over, and we talk about COVID a lot and our management of COVID. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment on to what extent you think, as a board, that we achieved the goals, we helped move the district in a positive way with COVID or not.
Yeah, oh, I will.
Okay.
Yeah, I think overall, because they were all COVID and reopening related, okay? And I think overall, we did a really good job overall. There were hiccups. School G being probably the biggest hiccup. But I don't know how we could have mitigated it, how we could have done it differently, since it was such a crash and a rush. Well, that was the one thing that stood out in my mind, were all of the issues from a teacher perspective, a student perspective, getting that to work. Ultimately, everybody bought in, and to your credit, you stuck to your guns on it, so we're doing it. We're not gonna give it up. And there was a lot of pressure to go back and do Google Classroom or whatever. But overall, as you read through these, there were what, 12 of them, or wherever there are, 11 of them. I think we did a pretty damn good job. I really do. There were hiccups along the way, but when you read through the details of our objectives and what these goals were,
Recording in progress.
I think that we met almost all these goals.
Well, thanks.
I really do. We did all things considered, I would say. They would like to be considered.
Yeah.
I think we, as a system, as a board, I think we did what we were charged to do, and did it reasonably well.
Okay.
There were complaints from parents, understandably so, knowing that we were never going to be able to make everybody happy with it, and that was a given all the way through. But the opening process, we did school by school, location by location. We made decisions. We reviewed each location, the way our objectives were laid out, and I feel pretty good about what we did. Now, hopefully, looking back on it, most of the parents would feel that way also. All things considered.
Right,
Okay.
got it.
Take it.
Okay,
No, I'm very happy with
okay,
with
great.
what we did, and how we laid out our objectives, and we did it. Yeah, and it ended up being a pretty darn good year, all things considered.
All right. Ruth or Jen? We're doing the 7 minutes on each topic. So Jen or Ruth, do you want to add to what Glenn said, or?
I think that I think that we follow the goals pretty consistently. I think, the one place I think where we kind of faltered a little bit was when we set up the 3-week review period and just kind of sticking to that process.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure whether it was us not sticking to the process or the 3 weeks being an unrealistic time frame as, you know, everything was unfolding. But I think we could have been a little bit more regimented on that front. But for the most part, I'm really proud of the way we all stuck together and worked together and met unprecedented circumstances and times, and our kids were, for the most part, in school for the year. And I think that was a tremendous accomplishment. And they weren't only in school, we advanced the curriculum forward, we moved things forward, and I think we got to where we needed to be. So.
Okay, thanks. Ruth, I'm sorry, Jen?
I don't have much to add. Same kind of things. I think our timeline was tricky. I think it was difficult for parents when we put something out and then we kind of changed things based on one school, but then that affected the other schools, but we didn't really share that would then impact the other schools, because I don't think we all really knew that it would impact all the other schools. I think it was kind of a learning process for all of us. I wish we could have moved a little faster with some of our things. I felt like it took forever to get things going. But at the end of the day, it was a first for everybody, and I'm glad that they were in there. And I'm glad the year's over. And I'm glad to look forward to next year.
Okay, thanks. All right, how about if we go on to the second one, which is, to what extent do you think we run effective and efficient board meetings? What works well? What might we improve individually or as a group? So that just is talking about running the board meetings, being efficient about it, getting work done. So the sort of the logistics and the structure and the agendas and the communication and the, discussions and all of that. So, Jen, I'll put you on the spot just because Glenn
Sure.
went first last time.
That's okay. I think it varies meeting to meeting. I think I would love to see us hit all the easy things first and leave the topic that needs the most discussion last. I feel like sometimes when we organize, if a big discussion happens early on, when you look at the agenda that still follows, it makes us sometimes be like, oh, just stop talking and move on. Whereas if we could quickly go through some of those other things and we knew we only had one item left to really sit down and discuss, like maybe we would have, we'd focus more on that and less on all the other things that have to come and still us trying to get out by 9 o'clock.
Okay. Ruth?
And I think that, for the most part, we have been pretty effective and efficient. I think, for me, it would be, if there's like a big ticket item, to maybe get it a little more background, maybe a little bit sooner in the week, to have a little bit more time to, noodle and marinate. And I think for me personally, I struggle, we spend all our days multitasking, and especially I know when I'm in person at the meetings, I'm definitely more focused than sometimes when I'm at Zoom with kind of my phone and other things going on. So I personally have found that when I try to remind myself to keep this aside and stay present, that it works, that it works better for me, and that I'm a better participant for it.
Yeah.
I think for all of us.
Yeah, but it's just, something that I constantly try to be cognizant of.
Right, and I think we mentioned that earlier in the year at some workshop, and I think we
Yeah.
got better.
Yeah.
But, I know I'm certainly not perfect, so.
Yes.
Still room. All
Yeah.
right. Glenn?
Yeah, I think overall, our meetings are fairly efficient. We have the agenda, we follow it religiously, we don't deviate. I think we deal effectively with all the items that are on the agenda, okay? To Ruth's point, I think perhaps if there's some, there's some issues that are significant, maybe an earlier flow of information or data or whatever about the issue could be helpful. The thing that has always frustrated me is that there's nothing on the agenda that says other business or other items. So it cuts off and eliminates any the raising of any possible item that may be on your mind. And I don't know if that's typical or if that's, what, we've self-directed that, okay? I don't know where we are as a system. I don't know what the feelings are within the system, the district. One of the things that I'm concerned about, and as you are, well, tell me, in Virginia, they've begun the process of eliminating all advanced math classes. Are we at all considering or looking at doing any of that? And it's a question that comes in my mind. What are we doing? And not knowing and not having those items, this is discussion critical race theory, not having that, where are we as a district? What is our position? What do we do? And never seeing that and not being able to raise that as a question, I find frustrating. Okay?
Yeah.
And maybe something we could put on the agenda early on, or I could raise it and say, look, I'd like to have this on the agenda, which I probably could do, but I haven't done. But
Yeah,
anyway, I find that about the only frustration I have, in our meetings, is that we have the agenda, it's rigid, fixed, done, over and done with. That's all. And we stick to it. I mean, we do a pretty good job. We run our
Me
meetings
too.
pretty efficiently, I think.
Going to your point, I was writing down open discussion.
Huh?
I wrote down open discussion. Is there a way to have on our agenda? I know it has to be published ahead of time. Like, is there a way that we could have open discussion as one of the items where we have
about
something?
anything random?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I think FOI would
It's
say
no,
no.
right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has to be tied to
It has to be
a
noticed.
published topic. But there's a bylaw process for raising questions, I mean, just questions or topics. And I think, my observation is this board has operated fairly informally, appropriately so.
Yeah.
If a question has come up, it filters its way to the chair or
Yeah.
me, and it
Yeah.
lands on the agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that, like, we're not prepared or ready to talk about, and so, so we.
And that's fine. You say so. Okay,
Yeah.
if the question comes up, say, look, next meeting, we need to do some work. We need to get ready. But I just,
Yeah, so I think the way to do it is if you want to see something on the agenda, then you can write to Kevin or write to me,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
we'll do the best, to
Yeah.
accommodate,
Yeah.
depending on what the issue is and how much background
Yeah.
work it will take, how soon it would appear.
But other than that, I think our meetings
yeah.
are pretty efficient, and pretty
Okay,
well run.
good.
They really are. And we get through it. I think the participants are always cognizant of their time and getting through their presentations, which is because sometimes they're lengthy, but I think all in all, it's pretty good.
And there's no deadline that says 9 o'clock, it's just
Yeah.
been kind of
That's
our
kind of a
practice,
bit of
but if anybody wants to
It's
change
kind of nice
that.
to not be here
Kind of
till
self-imposed. Yeah, I know. This is kind of self-imposed, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's good. And it's good.
So you're comfortable with that?
Yeah.
All right, okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, the next one is, how well do you think we communicate with parents, community, staff, students, news media? And are there suggestions for improvement? You can always do more communication, so, what went well, what
Yeah.
should we add, and how much time do we have to do it? We have to be realistic,
Yeah.
too.
I think the only thing that has fallen away, Bruce always did it religiously, was the letter from the board.
Other notes from the board too.
Okay? And it was in the bulletin every week or after every board meeting, and that's gone away. And I think that would be of some value.
What was,
It was
I
about-
remember that, what is it?
Yeah, it was
that
about
they
the
do?
board, what the board of education did, our meeting, what was
Oh, at
covered,
the
what was
meeting. Oh,
discussed, boom,
okay.
boom, where we're headed, decisions taken. It was just an update to the community who may or may not sit and watch us, okay?
Mhm.
And I think that was valuable. And I would say that's the only thing that I think
I
is.
think Chris did it once a month. I don't think it was every meeting.
Well,
Bruce might have
well, we
done it
had-
every meeting, but
well,
I think
maybe
Chris did
was
it
only
once a month.
but it was always published
Mhm.
Yeah.
in the bulletin. And I think it was of value to the community.
Okay.
Okay, and I think that's one thing that I think we've missed. I think it's not,
Well, so that it doesn't always fall on one person, is it something that we can rotate around us? Like,
well,
so each
that's up to
person
to
takes.
us to decide. It could be, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
But
I
think it
I
was-
certainly didn't do it every month, but I will tell you, I did it every 2 months.
Yeah, okay.
If you go back, you'll find them.
But I think I think that's a value. I really
Okay,
do.
all right, so more of those.
Debbie,
Okay.
we've also met, like, what, twice as many times as
Yeah.
any other year? I mean, it's
That
been
was
a
gonna be
little
a comment
crazy.
that I was gonna make. I think you guys set a record for the number of meetings. And going back,
Yeah.
beginning
Yeah.
in March of 2020.
Oh, no doubt about it. I
Weekly
mean,
meetings through the summer and
Yeah.
the early fall.
Yeah.
I mean, just extra, and, you know, I would also add to that, we probably had far more attendance and viewership than I would suspect ever.
Oh, there were nights we had
Yeah.
700, 800 people watching
Yeah.
our meetings. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know, you could see it on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
The participants like, whoa, baby. Like, yeah.
So, I know it's a little bit of a silly one, but as I was, did I even bring it with me? No, as I was thinking about it, you know how we print out like the district calendar, and it's like the whole year on the one page? Can we like add a notation for board meetings on there?
Sure.
So just,
Yeah, so just, that's a great idea.
yeah, so it's in the district calendar, so it's like the same days that, you know, when it's like
That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
teacher,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Great idea.
whatever. If it's even like a asterisk or a star next to the date or whatever it is, I think that would be helpful. And I think it might also be helpful if we can look, I know we talked about this previously, but looking into like maybe piggybacking off of like the town system where you can opt in to get notices.
Yeah, that's on Lucine's
And then they
to-do
like
list.
push out the agendas, and if you wanna see the minutes, they push out the link to those, I think those two things
Yeah.
Mhm.
would be a little bit easier. And then I think it would be really great if somehow on the Board of Education homepage, there could be the link to whatever meeting is that week, without having to go through like not having to go through like the board documents tab, and then you know, opening up the agenda in the board documents tab. So kind of the way Lucille sends out that email that has the agenda and the Zoom link on it, I presume we're probably going to continue the multimodal platform, doing Zoom and in person for next year.
Yeah.
So and even if it's like every, you know, whatever the next meeting is, like that kind of one page or that link or whatever, if that could be kind of on the front page when you look up Board of Education, like meetings, or, you know, be right there.
Yeah, I'll play with that one and see,
Yeah.
you know, what it would take to do that.
Yeah, and that way the link for everything is there and the agenda is right there and you don't have to go hunting for it.
Well, first of all, I would love, speaking of our website, we could do lots with the website perhaps, but selfishly speaking, can we get a better picture? We all look like
We all look like we're going to a funeral.
Yeah, like a whole week of funerals. It's terrible.
August will be a good time. Everybody will be
Yeah,
coming
just
out
a
of the sun.
little bit lighter, you know.
Yeah.
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 Add to my
We're all
to-do
in
list
gray
here.
and black,
Yeah.
and we're all
Yes.
sort of
Oh my
grumpy because it's probably 9 o'clock at night.
All right,
And
so-
I remember having like, I had an issue with my eyes, I've got my glasses on, and then I'm like sitting there like this, I'm like, oh my god. That's all right. I think as far as communication too, how often do all of the building principals send a letter to their, is it?
It varies. So
Right?
Jory does a weekly,
Every Friday.
Cider Mill.
They
I
do
think
the
it's
What's the
at
Buzz?
least
I
monthly.
feel like she's a monthly.
Bob's is less frequent than that, but it's
Okay.
usually really thick. And then Miller Driscoll. I don't.
I think I got something once a month.
Yeah. So I know they for the
I
ordinary
get a weekly
communication
from
they
my
rely
teacher.
on the PTAs.
Yeah.
So maybe not a way to have them link, like sometimes they could just send our link with the Zoom link, because so many people text or email me, what's the link? How do I find the link? And then I'm emailing them the link that Lucille
Oh, jeez.
is sending us. Like, I think it's hard to find.
So
That's
just
the
a
whole-
better, for the Zoom link in particular? Yeah.
Well, Jory's I always get in the email. It always comes through the school, through the Gmail.
Yeah.
Jory's is always there every
Yeah.
Friday. It's great.
Well, if Ruth's idea, if
Yeah, that would take care of
if
it.
people opt in to get the push notifications,
Yep.
then that
It
would
would
take care
always
of
be
it.
there.
Or, and if it's on the front, if it's on the homepage of the website,
It should
So
be
you
a
don't-
click.
so it's
Yeah.
Like a little
right there, yeah.
Board of Ed meeting tonight, here's
Yeah.
the link.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
like a button or, you know.
okay.
As far as meetings next year, I'm so thankful we're back in person because my Wi-Fi is horrific. If, I like the fact that the public could be zoomed in, but if our presenters could be here in person, because sometimes, I know last time it was a little hard to hear
Yeah.
some of them when they were speaking, and then we were kind of missing
Oh,
what
I'm sorry, that's just the thing.
with their sharing. So if our presenters could at least be here.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think building principals need to be here unless they have some major role, but just the people actually presenting.
Okay, that's easy.
Well, at this point, there's no reason to think we're going to be anything other than back to normal.
No, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that, like,
Yeah.
having the Zoom capacity is a wonderful enhancement to in-person meetings.
Yeah.
And I kind of pushed Kevin to say, to lighten up on the staff, because they've had a long day.
Yep.
And then there's a lag time between, the end of when the kids go home and all the
Yeah.
prep, and then waiting around on site for the meeting, then you have the meeting, and then you drive home.
Yeah.
So if you can be here Zoom, and I understand the presenters may be different,
Yeah.
but, I would say to those people that aren't presenting,
Yeah.
that we may have a question, at least those people should be able to.
I think so. I
Zoom
agree.
in.
Yep.
Oh, and it'll make it so also,
Only
if
It's
just-
somebody
it's just
has
too
an
hard on
emergency at
staff.
home and we don't have a quorum, we could get a quorum because you can Zoom in from
Right.
Oh,
home
we
if you
can
need-
too,
like for
yeah, of
us,
course, yeah, and I was talking
yeah.
about staff, yeah, I just wanted to try to
Yeah.
make it easier, because
Yeah.
it's a long, long, long day.
And remote participation's in the bylaws, so that's, that's a practice that's.
Okay.
had been
Yeah, for us,
previously done.
we have
Yeah.
always had the call-in number, and now we have the video
Yeah.
capability, yeah.
Just on that note, we ought to look at that bylaw, because that was a bylaw that was written pre-Zoom. It was
Yeah.
really telephonic.
Okay.
And so there are some restrictions that may no longer be necessary if Zoom is the tool.
Okay. Yeah, we have to update that.
August policy meeting.
Okay, so, we gotta keep moving.
Yeah.
All right, so, each of these could have taken an hour, I get it, but we only had 1 hour, so.
Yep.
All right, so how well do we lead, guide, and support the district's vision, mission, and goals? And how well do we lead, guide, and support growth and student achievement? So my personal take is that we obviously depend on Kevin for that, but I
Yeah.
think that this year, I think he does a good job of keeping the board involved in the strategic planning. And the most notable thing this year, although it came later in the year, was the portrait of the graduate.
Right.
So I just, it's kind of a plea to Kevin, and we've got to
Yeah.
keep our hands on all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the question there is, we don't lead at all. We support, we follow Kevin's guidance and Kevin's direction. He's the person who sets the standard. And from my perspective, our role really is to support him. He's the one charged with developing, where the district is going, not us. We can either support, disagree, have discussion about what his aims and objectives are. But the superintendent is really the person who leads. He's in charge. He directs. He sets the standards. He sets the objectives. He sets the goals. Our role as a board is to engage him in conversation about it, to either agree or disagree, to have dialogue about what he's doing and why he's doing it and what his objectives are and why he set these. But I don't know that it's the district's role to lead. That's why we have a superintendent. That's why we pay him what we pay him, is to set the objectives, to determine where he sees this district going and what he wants to see from this district. What his vision is for this district, to communicate that to us And our role really is to say yay as a board of directors, which we are, or nay.
Yeah,
He comes to us annually with his presentation with it. Here's where we're going. Here are my objectives. Here's what I see. And as the board of directors in the corporate environment, the board of directors doesn't set the goals. The CEO is the leader. He's the one who determines, and he sets to and delivers to the board what his plan is, what his objectives are, what his goals are for the year. The board either says yay or nay, we support you, or hey, let's talk about this one because we're not so close. So, and that's what our role is, in my view.
Okay, that's interesting. I have a slightly different perspective, but, you know, it's a great point, so go ahead.
But to that point, and especially considering, you know, the work that's gonna be upon us next year with student achievement and growth, and I would like to see just a little bit easier to handle data and metrics on growth. And if it's like, can be the same kind of format throughout the year. I know that we're moving to like a 6-week kind of review cycle. I'm not talking about me seeing everything 6 weeks, but I would like to see like in September where we're at, and then kind of have another like pivot point again, like around like Thanksgiving or Christmas, and then maybe again February, just so we can know if our interventions and our programs is making the progress that we had hoped, or if there are resources that need to be reallocated, or deeper discussions and needed to be had, and just something that's a little bit clean and easy. And I'm sure Chuck, like the 5 most valuable, like a dashboard almost, 5 most valuable, math metrics or reading metrics or English metrics or whatever.
I think we should make it a board goal.
Mm-hmm.
It should become a board goal for one of
Yeah.
our goals. Should be every so many months we, look at data to see how our kids are doing. Just, support or not support, does what we're doing support or not support them? I think kind of to that point, and I know I'm guilty of this because we have great conversations in the teaching and learning committee, and then sometimes there's follow-up and sometimes it just gets moved on to something else, or then sometimes I forget to follow up and to ask again. And I think if we all did a better job of asking a question and then just following up, it's not always you, it's like everybody, we're following up with a response and making sure that we get a response to some of the questions that we've asked. I would say for the most part, we always get an answer. But there's always some times where something kind of slips through the cracks and or lags and things get in the way of that, and that's kind of to be expected. But I need to do a better job of reminding and just staying on top of it and asking again in case it gets, pushed aside or whatnot.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, if there's an issue that as a board we think should be addressed, that's our obligation, our responsibility to bring it to heaven.
Well, that's why I'm talking about leading. I
Okay,
mean,
yeah.
Gwen, you are the one who says most often, hey, what's with our math program results, and we all agree with you. But so to me, that's leading as well. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Right.
But
right.
overall, it's his responsibility to tell us his vision, his direction,
Yeah.
where he's taking the system.
Yeah. And we look
Okay.
at the report of the graduate, we have input into it,
Right.
but Kevin's
Yeah.
got to bring it to us.
He's got to, but
Right.
if there is an issue that we as a board say, hey, we're concerned about this, Kevin, you need to get in and get back to us with what your plan is to deal with it and how you, okay? And I didn't mean to mislead that we abdicate,
Okay, all right,
okay?
yeah,
Good.
perfect, okay. Okay, we doing okay on time, Ruth?
Yeah.
All right.
it's, 30 seconds. So-
Okay. How about if I just read
that?
All right. To what extent do our budgets and fiscal oversight both support district needs and demonstrate fiscal responsibility? This, to me, is one of the biggest challenge of a board, because we see what the system needs and we hear the taxpayers, and, trying to balance that is hard. So anyway, I personally think this year we did a good job, but that's just my opinion. Anybody else want to comment on either our process or how you think the budget We had to redo last year's, or the year before, whatever. We have it moving forward, but we had to redo the year, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, how does it work when you guys are figuring out budgets? Do you guys think about it all year long in terms of, hey, this is what we budgeted, we didn't even come close to this, maybe moving forward, we take less or ask for less here, or put less here, whatever, and kind of reallocate it to something else, or just take that money out of the budget completely?
It depends.
Okay.
You know, I think I would say we follow like a modified zero-based budget, you know, so like we don't build everything from the ground up because we know, staffing, we know programming and those associated costs. And then, some of those, when we examine programs or when we have a vacancy, we start again and say, all right, what's the need here? So it's not full zero-based, it's not full cost to carry forward. It's kind of a combination of both. But, there's a group of us, we're thinking about it all year long. And one of the challenges with, fiscally managing or financially managing a school district is the budget planning process is, despite our best effort to sync it up with goal setting and priority planning, it just naturally gets out of sync. So for example, so we have a budget that's adopted, ready to go, and through May and June, new ideas and new priorities come out of the woodwork because people are naturally in that end of year reflection cycle, and so we find ourselves like, all right, we have to put this on the agenda for next year. We have to, reallocate, or consider reallocating funds now. So it can get very complex. But we also, I don't know, I think we, working particularly with Ann and Marianne, they're so very good, so if we do confront an area where, priorities have shifted, then we kind of go back through that cycle and say, all right, so, what are we willing to give up? What do we want to change? That never happens, with, large sums of dollars, but, on the margins, that's not terribly uncommon.
So what might help sometimes is seeing a budgeted and an actual.
Yes.
So like what we budgeted, and then at the end of the year, what the actual was. Because then it drops off, and you see what the actual is, so you can see a trend. But it might help to help us
Yeah.
see budget versus actual at different points.
Right.
Not every single point, but, I don't know how hard that is, if that creates another
No, it's a-
20,000
it's a
hours
re-
of work. I don't want to do that.
It's not, and in the, one of the gifts of New World, and, we're still in the process of that transition, it's been multi-year, but the report writing that comes out of New World is so far superior to what we had in the past. So it's really just a question of setting up your fields and running the report.
Okay. And I think, I'm just jumping illogically, but it just reminded me of the New World thing. I get that our budget book is supposed to be so much friggin' better, but to me, it's the hardest thing in the world to go through. I mean, I know Jeff Rudishauer loves it, he has said that, but if I see, like compensation for Social Security one more time, like it's everything,
Yeah, 'cause
every
it's by cost
department.
center, yeah.
So if there are more summary sheets, like Glenn asked for, those are, to me, the most helpful. You need the global picture, because otherwise you're wading through pages
Right.
with weird breaks, and you can't figure out, what was I looking at again?
Yeah.
I don't need to know the tennis
Yeah.
coach's Social Security. I mean, it's okay, but I also need a summary for what does this sport cost, and what's the FTE in it?
Yeah, we kept the Excel, so in the budget, you got, kind of the
Yeah.
New World version of summary sheets by
Okay.
big cost center, so by
Yeah.
school, by department.
Yeah, which are
And then
very broad,
we
yeah.
kept the Excel spreadsheet, which is, it's a duplication for some of that information, with the understanding that the readability is easier there.
Good, yeah,
But those are
yeah.
manually created by
Oh, it's too bad. Yeah, because when
Marianne.
Glenn asked for it, it was so helpful.
Yeah, I think, just within New World itself, one of the notes I flagged for Anne going through this process again was just, there's a notes box that I think we need to take more
Google
advantage
Fi,
of.
a phone plan by Google.
Is that
I think
mandated?
overall you do a pretty good job.
Yeah,
It's always a challenge. The budget development is a challenge for Cabinet and his staff. But our fiscal oversight over the last many years has been pretty darn good in the system. I think as a board, I think we've done a really fantastic job of staying on target, staying on budget, making decisions as they need to be made. And I'm very comfortable with where we are in our budgeting and fiscal control process, really am.
Good. And we love Ann.
I think that kind of settling how we kind of organize our operations versus our infrastructure within, our building and facilities maintenance would go a long way. I think so people kind of see that what part of the budget is actually to programs and to students and to staff, and what part of the budget is actually to maintaining our facilities. And that way, years that we need more for facilities, it becomes, I think the understanding is made, is better amongst the community to understand that, that where funds kind of over time are being allocated to and how they're being spent.
Right, and I think we talked about, big capital
Right, big capital is. Right.
things that there may be just a way of putting it separately the way the town does, so I think that's still something we're trying to do. Okay,
Yeah.
on to the next.
Okay.
Can I ask you one really, really quick question?
Okay,
Really quick. Textbooks, did we decide to kind of stop using them or giving them to kids because it was financially costing more, or because we thought that online info gave us a better array of info, or what?
No, I mean, I think this year, if we didn't distribute textbooks, it would have been pandemic driven, but we often
Okay.
distribute textbooks. I mean, we buy textbooks every year, and usually, in many cases, we'll buy, especially for like some of the larger math texts, we'll buy 2 sets, so there's one in school, one at home.
Okay.
I think to some degree, it's up to the teacher also.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's generally, it's a school-based decision,
Yeah.
and, the materials and the resources shift.
Yeah.
We have certainly added our, inventory of online materials for sure, and tried to take advantage, to the conversation about finances, tried to access, free materials or open source materials where possible, but, I mean, we purchase textbooks all the time.
Okay, so maybe it's just more of a building or a teacher preference, or,
Yeah, honestly, it shouldn't be teacher preference, right? Especially when we have multiple sections, so,
right.
if there's something like within that question you want me to go look at, I will, because
Yeah.
that's a pretty well-established process,
Or it could
and
be
there
a
shouldn't be any mystery about it,
departmental.
or there might be some inconsistency, just
Or it could be a departmental decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
department, here's
We can
what
talk
we
more
do.
about it, I like teaching and learning.
Yeah,
or
I think
something,
that's a
but-
great question, because I think that, the other question too, just around that is, how are they used?
Yeah.
Right, so for some courses, they're just a resource and the teachers really don't rely on them, so they might send them home with a kid, or they're in the classroom or something.
okay, we're moving along.
Yeah.
To what extent is our relationship with the superintendent constructive and collaborative? How well do we communicate?
All right, can we ask Kevin to leave,
Yeah.
please?
No. I think Kevin should answer that question.
Yeah, no, I
So
give it
go
5
ahead.
stars, absolutely. No, I think, I explain this to my colleagues all the time. I really, for all the time I've been in Wilton, the relationship with the board has been exemplary, and it's because, people are open and they're candid. This board has operated politically for all the years I've been here, which also really makes a difference. But when there is a question or a concern, it's always on the table, and I value that.
Well, I tell you watch the news recently about Board of Ed meetings across the country, and you go, oh my God, are you kidding? I mean, it's just insane, and I'm so proud that we're above that we don't have to deal with that. And I've often said, I know our board is split politically, supposedly. There's 6 of us, 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats. And I've often said, you'd be hard pressed on our board
You
to
wouldn't
figure
have.
out who's who.
Yeah.
You really would be, because it never comes into play. What comes into play on our board is our relationship with you and what we're doing for our students, period, in the conversation. And, no, I think it's been wonderful. I don't know, you will let us know if there's something we can do to improve our communication,
I will.
hopefully. Because I think we've been, and feel free to be, we're as open as we can be with you, and feel free to be so. I've been critical at times and said, hey, you need to
Yeah.
move, gotta get going. And I feel comfortable doing that. I don't hesitate. Okay, so I'm very happy. I think we have a good working relationship.
Yeah, I think, the other piece I would add is, again, it started on my first day, but I have a much more intense communication relationship with the board chair.
Yeah.
So I mean, we speak, it's not daily, some days it is, multiple times a day.
Oh,
But,
this year, yeah.
And that's, that's helpful, and, so,
I think, this year was crazy, yeah.
yeah.
And I think any of us feel free to get in touch with you, to deal with you directly. I
And
mean,
you do.
I know I do.
Yeah, and you
I don't
do.
hesitate.
And it's as it should be.
We all do,
Mhm.
and as it should be. I think
And then
it
we
works.
want to make sure we don't abuse that, because
Yeah.
some boards take up the superintendent's time. I don't get the feeling that we are, unless you
No.
want to tell us that
No,
we are. It seems
it's-
like everybody's very respectful and appropriate.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. No, it's been really, I think, we collectively have been more successful as a result. That's my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments on that one? Responsiveness, do we feel like Kevin's responsive and,
Oh, I definitely do.
Okay.
It's
All right.
easy. If we don't ever present a question to you, it's on us. It's like my choice to not. Like sometimes you and I will talk and I probably should go to you after that, and sometimes I just kind of let it go, but that's on me, not because I feel like you don't want to hear from me or because you wouldn't respond. That's more a me thing.
Well, the only thing is, you have on occasion written a letter about the district,
Mm-hmm.
but not often. And I found those to be very insightful and very informative
Letters to you, to the board.
to the board or to the community
Yeah.
from the district. And if I have anything, if there's any, and I don't know how often you did it, but when you did it, they were always so well received and informative, and I think maybe, not to put more work on you, God, you have enough as it is. But I think that was a big positive. Those were very well done and well received.
That kind of goes back to the whole communication part.
Yeah, back to
Right.
communications with the district,
Yeah.
with our constituents. And I
Yeah.
think that was,
I mean, Andrea had a great thing where she had started this year also,
Yeah.
like communicating with her
Mhm.
group and,
yeah.
not to put work on Chuck's plate, but maybe Chuck, maybe we should consider having him do
I
something.
mean, certainly during the
similar.
course of this year, your communications relative to COVID were phenomenal, were great.
Right.
And informative and timely and to the point and well received and very important. Well, there's a lot of other things going on in the district. That communication from you to the community would be of great value, and I think a real asset.
Okay, I hate to be a stickler for
Okay.
time, but we have
Fine.
two questions left. And I worded this wrong. I meant to be, I want, there's one that's negative, one that's positive. I meant them to be both positive, so it makes no sense. But what it meant to say is, to what extent do we avoid becoming overly involved in operational issues and focus on policy, goals, and program strategic planning, et cetera? So you understood the intent
Yeah.
there, even though I
Oh, yeah.
meant to have it either both positive or both negative, and I had one and one, so that was silly. But again, there's the operational issues, and then there's the board's role. And sometimes it's hard for everyone to tell, especially this year. I think this year, if we erred, too bad, because it was a more hands-on year.
Yeah.
But in general, we have to try to distinguish between what parents do and what their avenues for issues are, when it's appropriate for us, what does the PTA do? To what extent are we a complaint desk, and is that healthy? So we just always have to have those questions in our mind. And this year, my attitude was take all comers, take whatever, because this is crazy. And if people need help, it doesn't matter if they're asking for it in the wrong way. But maybe moving forward, we just have to keep that kind of more normal balance in balance.
We'll always be a complaint desk,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. Okay,
I mean, we're the Board of Ed.
right. But do you think we channel it appropriately?
We get so few of them, I think we handle it very well.
Okay,
is when the dam breaks.
Yeah,
that
is
we
that
have
Mandy
issues.
trying to call in? I'm sorry, I'm just looking at this phone.
No, I think this year has been a unique year.
Yeah.
And I think anything we do to evaluate or discuss this past year is a one-off, because it has been operationally, we got down to the nitty-gritty with, the maintenance staff and cleaning, all those things, which is your responsibility, not ours, okay, for the most part. You need to be aware, but that's it as far as it goes. You need-
Mandy's in the waiting room. I don't know if that means anything. Sorry,
but-
Glenn, I just.
Yeah.
She shouldn't be, because it looks like we can
How do we
see the
answer
phone.
her, guys?
She's not in the waiting room, I let her in.
Oh. Hi,
I'm
Lucille.
here, sorry, I'm here
Oh,
now.
there you go.
Yay,
Oh, hey, Mandy.
Okay.
I was a little.
All right.
All right, so Mandy, we're on the next to the last question. So anyway, we were in the middle of, are we appropriately avoiding getting into operational issues and sticking to our role as governance and policy and goals and programs and planning? And so Glenn thought, given the relatively few parents that come to us, that he thinks we're handling it well, and we try to channel.
Yeah.
And my point was, this year's a year like no other, so if we got more than normal, that's just the way it was.
I think, I don't think any of us want to get in the weeds
Yeah,
with you, with Kevin. It's his job.
Mhm.
He can deal with it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's
yeah.
always dealt with it effectively. We've got other things to focus on and be part of. So I think it's good. I think where we are seems to be pretty good and working pretty well.
okay,
How does, oh, go ahead.
yeah.
No, I mean, I've definitely had people approach me about more kind of operational issues. And I think it's hard to communicate back and to be like, I understand your concern and I hear your concern. Have you gone to, teacher first, your principal first, kind of working the process in the system? And then my response to them is like, I definitely want to know if the process in the system is not working for you. Like if you're not getting, timely answers, or if feel like you're not getting heard by those who can be direct pathway to try to solve your problem or your issue. But it does sometimes get a little bit of, for me personally, it becomes like a fine line, and I do often tell myself, well, take a step back, this is not a board's, my role on the board is not to get involved on that level or in that issue. And so I think sometimes it might even just be helpful as a reminder, maybe when we, as a board, when we do communicate it out, kind of remind people of their avenues and their pathways. And,
I was only gonna say response time, I think, to people's questions. Right, when we send them down this chain, sometimes it takes longer and longer, which builds up people's frustration, which makes the situation even worse than it initially was. So, I know we've talked about this before. I think when people do send emails, Debbie, is that still falling on you? I know you're responding to them, but does it fall on you?
Well, except for the last week, I didn't, sorry about that. I don't mind doing that, that's, and
Okay.
usually, you can tell by my answers, it's
Yeah.
either a repeat of what we've already said at the board, or we're gonna be talking at the board, or good luck, go talk to Kevin.
Yeah.
So,
And are you deciding, like, hey, this is not my question, this needs to go to Kevin, or hey, this needs to go to Andrea, or hey, this should go to Chuck, or like,
no, usually I let Kevin figure out
You make
where it
that
goes.
decision.
Usually comes
Yeah.
to me.
okay.
I think the emails have worked. Either, although the last couple of weeks, when people start complaining about the masks, I can't answer them for the last 3 days of school. That's kind of my attitude. We'll pick it up in August when it becomes, yes, you need to know. But right now, 3 days of school left, I can't help you.
It was like
I'll say my own response time has lagged. I had Eric Hawkinson count my emails this year.
Oh, I can only
Yeah.
imagine.
I got over 35,000, I think, from like August or July forward, and so you kind of do the math on that one, and
You had
I've
more than
I've
I
missed
did?
a
Oh, come
ton.
on.
So, I know that's, it's just a function of,
Okay.
we can always do better, but
It's
that's
this year.
it's an
Holy, so many hours
overwhelming
in a day.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's like the letter that came from the parent talking about her daughter being in tears about the fact that the books they were reading in class were all about black people and only one white person. And I didn't see a response to that, and I didn't address that. I didn't know who.
Yeah, it's on me to try to
Yeah.
say, but that's a hard one because I don't quite know where to start, other
Well,
than to
I
say.
shouldn't say what level, what grade her daughter was
Where-
in,
yeah,
or where she
yeah,
was.
yeah,
So I know that parent, and that parent's communicated
And I
with
know,
us.
yeah, I know Kevin has talked to her, so I guess
Okay.
I felt
Yeah.
a little bit
Okay.
less like.
Okay,
she's not
fine. I
out
didn't
in
do
the
anything with it.
Wilderness.
But those are the questions I had. I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and she actually emailed me separately, and I owe her a response.
Okay.
I have two that
Yeah.
are on my to-do list
Right.
before the weekend.
And I read those and I go, oh, you know, there's always a story behind it, always. But anyway, okay.
Okay, so again, to Glenn's point, we're not oversubscribed to, by individual parent
Nitty-
issues or emails, et cetera.
Nitty-gritties, no.
So to your point, I guess we are doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But I always have to remind myself for some issues, is that a PTA issue? Is that a principal issue?
Yeah.
Is it a board issue? And then, I think Ruth and Jen, you're right, that it can be frustrating to parents if it takes too long for the system to actually respond.
Yeah. And that's why I always say, please let me know if you haven't gotten a response. Because I
Right.
feel like that's a way I can be
Right.
helpful.
Exactly, yeah, okay. All right, so that leads us to the last thing, which is kind of, and again, this was the first year the board actually set goals, and it was relatively easy to do because we had the elephant to, it was so obvious what we needed to do, the focus. But moving forward, I kind of like the idea of having some goals. I don't want to overwhelm
Yeah.
ourselves. I don't want to
Mm.
make them too specific. So what I was thinking, if we can get some concepts out there, and then I can try to wordsmith it, and then in August or September, as Kevin's doing his goals, we can try to come back and say, are we happy with this?
Yeah.
So we don't need to decide tonight. Just give me some general concepts, and then I can.
Return to normalcy.
Okay.
Number one,
Post-pandemic,
top
yes.
priority. Nothing else is as important as getting back to normal, period. In any way, shape, form possible that we can do it.
Okay.
I mean, it's just,
And I would just like to see a goal or two, something that captures kind of, have we gotten a handle on learning loss? Are we also advancing curriculum forward and covering both those at the same time, just tracking to make sure that, our kids are getting back and moving forward.
as always, a goal is fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, I think we always have to put a
Okay,
budget one in there.
something has to always be there about that. Okay.
Ruth already talked about the data one. My other one was consistency among schools. There needs to be some consistency from school to school to school, and I would also love to see there be some consistency between classes within a grade. I feel some pretty big discrepancies between, house to house or color to color, or, this class, there might be 3 math classes, but they're all either graded differently, or they're all being taught the information differently. And if there's some way, I feel like we have spent a lot of money on coaches and instructional leaders, and
Sure.
part of that role should be making sure that all of our kids have a similar experience.
Like between red, yellow, and green, they should all be on the same program, they all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of the,
Or between,
yeah.
Yeah.
whatever
Which-
the 3 houses at Sutter Mill are, they should all,
Mhm.
right. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, which I know gets kind of tricky because you kind of want your teachers to have some autonomy, but it's also tricky as a parent on the other side when you don't understand why, so-and-so is doing something and your kid's doing something completely different, or being graded completely differently, or something.
Yeah, and so I think the question here is, as part of that, what's assured versus what's discretionary?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's right, and maybe that's the perfect solution, Kevin, to say, hey, this is what we can expect all of our kids to have, and then these are some things that, that's kind of up to the teacher to,
Yeah.
how they want to handle it.
Sure. Mhm.
My other, maybe this isn't a board goal, but it's just a personal thought on my end. The Teaching and Learning Committee. It's nice to have 2 people designated to that committee, that those 2 people will always be there. but I would love to open it to the entire board if possible. I just feel like it's a huge part of what we do and what our school is about, and it would be nice to have other input at that meeting. I feel like the bigger decisions come to the whole board,
Mhm.
but I feel like there's other times where, we're having a discussion, or somebody else might have a great idea that, maybe we haven't thought about, or whatever, but it would be nice if people wanted to join, that they could. And maybe they're allowed to, I just don't know. But if it's possible, you tell me.
Yeah, I think so certainly anyone can attend because they're meetings in public.
Okay.
To participate, as soon as you hit a quorum, it's a meeting of the board and not a committee meeting any longer.
Okay.
And so, that would require some, then I think so, within that, maybe there's some further decision-making about what topics should just automatically, be full board topics.
Okay.
Or
Is
what
there
would you
workshop
recommend,
opportunities?
or what would you recommend come to the board
Yeah.
more
Okay.
for discussion? Maybe that's another way to do it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like, well, before we finalize this, let's discuss. That could be an agenda item, maybe. That's another, I'm just thinking off the top of my head.
Right.
Or a workshop if it's really kind of going to be crazy, or,
Okay.
big.
Okay.
There's but a workshop doesn't have to be like a full hour, right? You could have like a half an hour kind of, or.
Yeah, or it could be on the agenda,
Right.
because it's in
Yeah.
public anyway, so, yeah.
Okay.
All right, but and moving along to the committees, I was thinking, I'd like to see the committees take the next step. And to me, that would mean, like when you do policy,
Mhm.
Kevin introduces it. Nothing wrong with that, except
Right.
maybe you should.
Okay.
Because by this time, the committee's vetted it. And it doesn't mean that you're saying, I want everybody to vote for it, but you can at least explain the process and why it came up and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with teaching and learning. You don't have to love what you're presenting, and you may even
Yeah.
vote against it, but at least you can say, here's what we've done as background,
Right.
and then hand it over to the staff,
Okay.
hand to Kevin. And it just seems like then the committees for the public are a little bit more, they can see that the board's been working behind the scenes.
Right.
That's my goal.
Yeah, we talk about so many great things, and I feel like, then the board meeting comes and we talk as fast as we can, and we get out like this brief version of this whole hour-and-a-half meeting that we've had, and I feel
Yeah,
like
and
we
that,
miss,
yeah, I don't want to
so
take
much
away from the
info.
committee reports, but then, if you're
Yeah.
going to talk about, here's American Sign Language course, you can just remind us what the process was, and.
Yep. Okay.
And then business ops, Glenn gives a great report, and I'm not sure exactly how to hand that off, but maybe if there's an issue or it's budget time or whatever, could sort of intercede a little bit around financial issues. So just kind of a little step forward, just a little bit more kind of public ownership. I know it happens behind the scenes, but.
Yeah, but no, you're right.
More overt. Would that be okay?
I think that's great. I mean, because frankly, these are your meetings, right, as board members, and so,
Right.
by right, that just makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, and the last piece I'd throw out there too, if there's additional, professional learning or board member development that you'd be interested in, we can solicit CABE, we can find, other board support professionals to help if there are other areas you want to pursue.
Well, I think maybe that's a goal then, is just to keep board development going, and and I know that everybody has crazy schedules, we're all volunteers, so I know you can't intrude on people's time, but I wonder if some sort of board development like this, maybe it'll have a consultant or maybe not, but just keep some of these sessions throughout the year.
If I was to sit in on teaching and learning, just kind of like dial in,
Yeah,
does that, if more board members did that, does that tip the scale? Or
Yeah.
only if I'm kind of like
If you're functioning as a board member participating,
okay.
right, and so
But if
you're
I'm
going
just
to be
absorbing or
interacting.
listening in,
Yeah, right,
okay,
yeah, then you're a member of the public and
Okay.
wide open.
okay.
Yeah. I think the tricky part for us coming on too, it's kind of not sure what your role is and what you're really allowed to ask or do, or what you should be saying, or like, it's just kind of like this kind of get thrown in. And I know we had our meeting, but it's kind of feel like you learn as you go. And the longer that I've been on, like, the more comfortable I am asking certain questions or having
Good.
different conversations. But it took some time to get there.
Yeah, and so did you guys started in December of 20?
Yeah.
Or December, right? Or December 19?
2019.
And we were March 20 was
Oops.
pandemic?
Yeah.
So, I mean, your board orientation
Kind of a
was
tough.
in the fire,
Well, it's
frying
trial
pan.
by fire.
Yeah.
You really didn't have a transition.
I know. All right, so I'm looking at the time, it is
Okay.
7:01, so technically
Ooh.
we need to shut out
Done.
of this.
Okay.
And
It was good.
thank you for your ideas. If you get more, for goals, just text me
That was
or
a good-
call me.
good
and
discussion.
I'll try to draft something. Excellent,
Yeah,
so
good
thanks,
discussion.
everybody. Okay.
We need to have more of them like that. Yeah.
Also, there's like a topic that
To order at 7:02. And so we may be able to have one board member join remotely, but she is definitely stuck on 95, so I'm not sure. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Glenn. Second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Where'd Lucille?
I don't know, we need her. Let me just excuse myself for a moment.
Okay,
and,
let's wait
so
on
get
comments
this,
from the public
Are
for a
we
little
up and
bit.
running on
squared away
Zoom?
here. No, we're not.
We're not, no, I didn't think
Are
so.
we recording
No, I
correctly?
don't think
Yes.
so.
Okay.
I don't know if we are or not. Let's say.
Okay. I'm just going to take the board chair's prerogative, and let's just look at our future business and let's start with item G, just because I'd rather Kevin were in the room for everything else. But as you notice that our calendar of meetings, which I hopefully will approve, they do not include July meetings, which is typical.
Yeah.
And so we come back to meet in the middle of August.
Right.
August 19th is a little bit tentative, but if you could put it on your calendars.
That will be our next meeting.
August 19th, right. And then we'll be in full swing on August 26th,
Right.
if that makes any
Yep.
sense.
Log in on this computer.
Okay?
Just log in here, I guess.
Okay, so Kevin, we took care of just our next meetings, letting people know that
Item G.
our calendar does not include July meetings unless there's some emergency.
Great.
But in the absence of a global pandemic, let us go back to our usual process of not meeting in July. Okay, and we approved the agenda. Lucille, I can always come back to comments from the public unless you're ready.
There were no comments from the public.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Glenn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Reports and recognition. I do not have a board chair's report except one final thank you to our exemplary teachers, our dedicated staff, and also our very special, very talented, very calm, and very skilled superintendent. So thank you for helping us navigate through the
Here,
entire
here.
pandemic year. And we are not sorry to see the year end in some ways, but I want to say we've ended on a great note with all the end-of-year activities. And as you all know, we had a glorious graduation, so there's a lot to celebrate. So thank you.
Thank
everybody.
you. Yeah, terrific.
All right, superintendent's report.
Great. I have quite a lot to report on. First, just to pick up where you left off, we want to congratulate the class of 2021.
Yes.
Ceremony was amazing, and it was so great to be in person. So we are absolutely looking forward to more of that as we proceed into the future. I also want to give a shout out to our Wilton Education TV folks who have done such an exemplary job. But the video production of our graduation ceremony could rival any major studio. And
Yeah.
if you want to see it, the links are on our website, and also Heather had produced one and published one in Good Morning Wilton. Oh, hey guys.
Oh, look, there's
Yeah.
people.
Welcome. I see Don Shells has joined us. So tonight, Don joins us for his last Wilton Board of Education meeting. So Don, on behalf of the district, I want to say thank you, congratulations, again on your new position as principal up at Chapag. And we hope you know that we wish you the very best as you embark on this new chapter in your professional career. We will
Yay,
miss you.
Don.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, just as I've appreciated all the kindness the whole Wilton community has shown me over the years. Thank you, Kevin, for those remarks, and I'm glad to be here with the board one more last time.
Great, thanks, Don. So I think most of you know, earlier this week there was an article published in The Current about a proposed amendment, I believe, to the implementer bill that would seek to withhold state funds derived from casino revenues from any cities or towns with schools that retain mascots, nicknames, or logos with Native American references. Wilton was included on that list. So I made a phone call just to try to understand, what the specific nature of the concern was. And so to the best of my understanding, the concern with Wilton was not with the use of the term warrior as our mascot, which is, actually not a specific reference to Native Americans. The concern was more to do with the image of the lance or spear with feathers that's been used on some of our athletic apparel and as well in some other images. So I want to just give you kind of a brief update of kind of where we are and what I think, we should probably do going forward and how. So first, there shouldn't be any concern about the use of the term warrior. If you look at the etymology of that term, it's, from the 14th century and means, fighter or, someone who engages in war. Our mascot, back many, many, many years ago, was a Native American. And so sometime in around 1983 or 1984, the school and the district changed the mascot to, and there's some confusion about whether it's a Greek or Roman warrior, but it is
Roman. It's
clearly.
definitely Roman.
Debbie, and you were here, so you would know.
Mine's Greek.
Right?
Yeah,
So we'll
Trojan.
go with Debbie on this one. So our mascot is very clearly a Roman warrior, and if you've been to a football game, you know it, right?
Yeah.
It's there's no hiding that fact. The official logo for Wilton is actually the Wilton W with the curved sides. And there's a fascinating history about how that came about somewhere about that same time period. So I think all of that's fine and good. The images we ought to talk about are, in fact, the, we do see on our football helmets, I looked at my son's lacrosse helmet last week because I didn't think it was there, but, sure enough, there's a lance with feathers. And we see that image all over the place in town, and it's been there for a long time. And we don't want to be engaging in any kind of cultural appropriation or be disrespectful in any way. So we ought to look at that. And so what I think, what I need to do is, go back and have some conversations with our coaches, certainly our athletic director and Dr. O'Donnell, our principal. We've talked about this in the past. We've already made some steps forward in the preceding couple of years. All of the attire that we publish here in the school, you see the lance, but there are no feathers on it. But that's an image that's hanging out there. There's also, with our kids, and again, no offense intended, I'm sure, they adopted the moniker Tribe. And so you'll see, when they're out at games, or you'll see it sometimes, painted on, windshields, Roll Tribe. And so I think, we probably have some educating to do there. So I think we can make some, some beneficial changes as we move forward. And, Debbie and I had a brief conversation about this earlier in the week, and the board, to my knowledge, has never adopted officially, a logo or a mascot, but that might be something that the board wants to do, just to be, clear and transparent and upfront about, what our logos are, who our mascot is, and so on. And so I thought I'll go back, beginning of the summer and do some work with, the folks that I think we need to have some conversations with, and then come back with a proposal that the board can contemplate in the, early fall.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. I think okay.
Out of curiosity, how much money do we get from that organization?
Oh,
Talking about private funding.
$0. Thank you. I should have noted that.
We get nothing.
Yeah, there are no funds that come to us from that particular, it's the Mashantucket Pequot Fund, I believe. It's the casino revenues.
Okay. So is there anybody in our town or anybody else other than this one thing that has come about that feels that we are racist in any way towards Native Americans?
It came up once before, not that long ago,
Well,
if you
in
recall.
the years that I've been here, there hasn't been any
There was one time.
outcry here. I mean, the questions have been asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's never been, I think in general, there's never been, there's never been a call for change, I think is a fair way to express that.
When I started in the district in 1987, the discussion, debate, concern was settled. It was recognized that the Native American Indian was not appropriate, not meant, and it was at that point just kind of promulgated and made more public, or made for anybody that had any doubts. It is the, all right, Roman or Greek warrior. And I think I was telling Ruth that I can attest to the mascot in the 80s that was worn at pep rallies, where my major concern was, what kind of a health hazard is this? Because it's so big and so hot. But it was clearly a warrior with the whole Greek or Roman garb. So I think that tradition, I think, is well established.
Yeah.
It's 40 years of tradition,
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
I
Don't remind me.
34 years, 34 years.
I don't think, though, that it's unreasonable to have kind of a settled logo and to have some control
Yeah.
over how that logo is used and consistency on how that's used across uniforms or other type of,
Yeah, and I guess,
related, paraphernalia that goes along with it.
Yeah.
to the note in my report, I think, this is certainly, it's, again, to the, the board's discretion here, but I was intending to do some legwork, and, I think we can put it on as an agenda item and, really have the conversation. And
It's a
see
very
where
simple
we are.
thing to do. Just eliminate.
Right, and if the board can officially approve or sanction or endorse,
Yep.
then, then booster clubs can take that, or coaches can take that, or private vendors who are, trying to sell the sort of Wilton swag, that everybody knows. And if they go in a different direction, that's on them.
So just a couple of other notes.
Mandy, is that you?
Andy?
Yeah, sorry, I'm on my way.
Okay.
What about the wording of tribe? Are you suggesting that tribe came after the warrior, and are we questioning the word tribe?
Yeah, again, Mandy, I think, I haven't really focused on the use of that term explicitly, but there's certainly, a Native American connotation with that word for sure. And so I think it's part of our conversation around, what's appropriate, what our mascot, our logo ought to look like, and so on. That's part of the conversation.
It could be the horde.
Well, I think, again, there's just, this is not something that, at least in my time, that we've really focused on And there's, you know, I mean, like so many other communities, we're, you know, steeped in tradition and practice, and it's an opportunity. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Okay.
So you'll come back in August or September?
I will.
Okay.
Yep, I will.
All right, and then write us up some of the history and what you're thinking.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, so
Thank you.
just a couple of other notes, if you don't mind. First, just on the note of hiring, as you saw earlier, we're really excited to welcome our new high school associate principal, Mr. Brian Keating. He comes to us from Fairfield Ward, where he served as a house principal. Mr. Keating has 28 years of experience as a teacher and administrator at the high school level. He holds a BS in English from UConn, a master's in education also from UConn, and a 6th year from Southern Connecticut. I'll just say, you know, we had 28 candidates in the pool, and from the first hello, Brian really stood out. We sat here with him in his final for, I think, just over 2 hours, and I really left feeling, first, just very impressed with his knowledge and his credentials, his understanding of high-performing high schools and, you know, how they operate, how we operate, and feel very, very strongly that he is going to be a wonderful addition to our high school community. And, you know, given his deep background in instruction, he's going to serve us very well on in supporting and improving our instructional priorities. So we're excited to have Brian. He'll start July 1st.
Okay.
I also shared with you all, we have a maternity leave over at Cider Mill. Lauren Bird is going out for several months. And so looking at, you know, all of the players here and understanding the high stakes nature of what we have to do when kids return to us, we spoke to Jeremy, spoke to Jen, spoke to Kathy, and we are moving Jeremy to Cider Mill. So he'll be there from July 1 through until Lauren returns.
Okay.
We have Bernadette Hess, who's been with us for a number of years in a part-time capacity at Miller Driscoll. So Bernadette is going to be temporarily appointed as full-time. So she'll backfill some of Jeremy's responsibilities. So I feel in terms of experience and expertise, we're covered very, very well. And then,
But Jeremy will go back to.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So this is temporary, and, you know, again, thinking about all of the things that need to get to happen. I felt very, very strongly we needed to have the right people in the right places, just so we don't miss a beat. We have a great opportunity for that same time period, and so today we posted for a interim .6 administrator combined with a .4 interventionist. And so you'll see later in the ARP plan that we're pulling together, we're seeking to hire some part-time interventionists in a short-term capacity to support kids. And so our thinking here is we want to entice one of our teachers who's got the 092 credential as well as the teaching credential to take this opportunity to grow and experience some administrative responsibilities as well as to retain some teaching responsibilities. So we see it, Kathy and I were talking about this quite a bit in the last week, and we see this as a real opportunity again, to tap into the talent that we have here in the district, and also to create an opportunity to grow and provide some new experiences for one of our staff members. So that's our plan, and I think I feel very good about it. I'm really happy with the way things have come together. And then just the last note here in my report, I want to say thank you to all of you. This has been an extraordinarily difficult year, as we've discussed time and again. But as we were just discussing in the workshop, the partnership with all of you, with this board really has been, I think, the linchpin to our success this year. So I wish you all a very restful summer. It'll be busy when we get back. And so, take advantage of your time away. And, I look forward to picking up when we meet again. Thanks.
Thank you. Committee reports. I think committees met.
Yeah, Ops met
right,
last
go
week.
for it.
And before I get into my report for Ops, I would like to send out a shout out to our senior AV staff, or whoever the responsible people are that put together the videos of the senior yearbook that came out today. And if you haven't seen it, I don't know where it's linked to or how you can get access to it. It's about 20 minutes long. It's phenomenal. I mean, it is so great to see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Just
Oh
came
my
this
gosh.
afternoon.
It's
Right,
20
we're
minutes.
excited.
It came this
Yeah.
afternoon. So if you're watching, if you haven't seen it and you can access it, please do. our kids in that department are just remarkable. Well done, guys and gals, I'm sure. So that's great.
Some of them have graduated, so.
Some of them are seniors, they're probably not watching now, but anyway.
Or they're downstairs.
Or they're downstairs working, it could be.
That's more accurate.
Ops met, and we did a number of things. We reviewed current and projected enrollment and staffing requirements. We did a financial review of how we expect to see the year end, which is positive, and on target, on budget. We had felt at some point in the beginning of the year that we were going to have to go to the Board of Finance for additional funding, which, as a result of the steps that the administration made during the course of the year, canceling things, cutting things, stopping spending, and some other assets that we were able to receive that Anna's done a great job with. We are on target without having to go to the Board of Finance, which is a real positive thing for the town and for us. The other thing we talked about for sometimes planning for next year, Chris Straub has developed a spreadsheet that we need to work on to get at comparable expenses by category, per student expenses, to try and get a better handle on how our money is being spent and where it's being spent, and then how we compare to other districts within the DIRG. And Kevin provided us with a spreadsheet that gives us a lot of comparative information, and we're favorable across the board, just about in every category, with other schools in the DIRG. So I have no issue with where we are financially in that regard. Okay?
Yeah,
That's it? Okay.
perfect, comprehensive. Policy, you met,
Yeah,
right?
Policy, we met. We had a good discussion on student dress. And we're advancing and drafting some changes to the current policy, and also the implementation and regulation that goes along with how that policy is used consistently across the district and across our schools. And I think we landed in a place that we're kind of ready to share. The draft will be shared with different school administrators and building administrators over the summer, and worked on a little bit, and hopefully wind up being before the board probably mid-September.
Yeah.
And we also then looked at just our overall policy audit calendar and how we're advancing through, and just making sure that we get everything reviewed in a timely fashion. And then we also kind of looked at some of our policies that had been COVID-19 specific, and looked at what needed to carry on or what needed to change or not change in relation to that. And the changes that we had made to most of the attendance policies and the student behavior policies and those types of regulations didn't mandate any changes. The green cleaning can stay the way it is, and you'll see later on that the visitors, that policy will revert back to how it was.
Till normal?
Pre-pandemic, yes.
Pre-pandemic.
Okay,
Right. It's great news.
great,
Yep.
thanks.
Teaching and Learning Committee also met. We actually had a really productive meeting, I thought. We began discussions about race, equity, and inclusion, and how that is embedded into our curriculum. And it just kind of prompted some other discussions. Karen Brennicke and Fran Compar joined us to speak. We talked about course outlines, and I think they're already out there. It's just maybe finding a way to make it a little bit easier for families to access. Karen had a great idea about having parent forums to talk about different social issues that would be discussed throughout the year, so parents kind of knew what was happening ahead of time. And then we also talked about maybe having the board look at some of those social standards and kind of talking about how we felt about them, and did we think they were appropriate for the certain ages, and kind of where we were as a board. Kind of taking a look at that before we move forward.
Is that all? Just kidding, that was sarcastic. That's quite a bit, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, review and discuss. Continuing education report.
Great, so we want to welcome Dolores Tufariallo, who is our phenomenal continuing education director. I hope she's still there. I saw her before.
There she is.
Oh, there she is. So Dolores,
There she is.
I hate to say, there you go.
There you
Okay. Yeah, so welcome. Dolores, you're up.
Thank you so much. First, I'd like to thank the board for your financial support, Kevin for the leadership, principals, Fran Compar and your group, Maria and Human Resources, just everyone here tonight for your support, because without your support, we would not be here, and we know that. You know the primary focus this year was on childcare, the childcare for Wilton Public School families and for the support staff, instructional staff children. That was the primary focus, along with supervision of remote learners. Additionally, we focused on outdoor programs, and we tried to institute as many as we possibly could because we could not be inside until later this spring. A collaboration that we formed was with the Riverbrook Regional Y. We had a really great experience having our remote learners there and childcare there on Wednesdays. It was a very positive experience, and out of that came winter outdoor programs. We offered paddle programs for adults and young students. They have terrific facilities there. I mean, it's like a little country club, and it's another gem in our community. So I'd like to thank Bob and Shayna and that whole crew there for being so welcoming and so supportive. We offered throughout the entire pandemic, except for the first initial months, we offered 2 programs that were consistent throughout the whole year. That was outdoor and indoor tennis and knitting, believe it or not. It ran the whole pandemic year. Now, how did that run? The outdoor and indoor programs ran in Wilton, but we also expanded it over to New York, in Vista, New York. The knitting group was supported. First, we had Zoom knitting meetings, and we had one generous client that offered up her optical shop. Her name is Margaret Hollander in Westport. We had 2 beautifully cleaned rooms there for 8 attendees, and our knitter, who is a Wilton resident, Kate Velasky, and she helped facilitate that. This spring, we're continuing. We have a huge tennis program. We have a solid knitting group. We have a solid bridge group that's going on right now in the room next door. I'm over at Middlebrook right now. And we put in place a pickleball program with the goal of not just instructing pickleball, but trying to get a community program going, just like they have in other towns. In terms of progress, we opened the child care registration in May. We're at full capacity. We opened the registration, and within 7 minutes, all 3 programs filled. So we also have wait lists, so principals, I'm going to be coming back to you for additional space if you have it. You were very kind to us this year, so I thank you. We are in the process. We opened Monday with summer camps, so we have Sal Gimo and his crew over at Be a Good Sport at Miller Driscoll. We have a tennis program going on at Middlebrook Courts. That actually ended, I believe, today. And we had Red Cross babysitting. And we're just going to keep rolling it out through the summer. We're pretty much at full capacity for summer, too. So we're back.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
That's
bravo.
wonderful,
Well
thank
done.
you.
Well done.
Can I ask one question about the child care program that fills up so quickly? If there is that much demand, is there any possibility of expansion?
There is. It's a space, it's dependent upon space.
Okay.
That's what it's dependent upon, space,
Sure.
and, we have to hire. So we're trying to hire back. I don't know if you know this, but we had to let go about 6 people of the child care staff because the registration numbers weren't there really this year. It was, it was tremendously low, but picked up in the spring. So we're trying to hire those child care instructors back, and it's always dependent upon the space.
Okay, I understand. All right.
Dolores, is this space just it's in our school district though, right? It's like in our,
Yes.
in Miller Driscoll, or is it Cider Mill also?
Yes.
Yes, the Miller Driscoll and Cider Mill for child care. We run 3 programs.
So who makes those decisions about space?
Oh, we work with the principals.
Okay.
Well, thank you for keeping the program going in a creative way during the year, and having it back full is amazing because it's not even the end of June yet, so thank you. You do a
Thank you.
tremendous job, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm going to add to that. So Dolores, we met periodically over the course of the year.
Sure.
As you know, Dolores, when the, pandemic struck, she jumped right in, and her attitude, as always is, but it's can do and what can we do?
Yeah.
And so I just, since we have the opportunity to have you here in public tonight, Dolores, I just want to commend you in front of our board and everybody else who's listening. Your work is exemplary. And so, we're thrilled that you are bringing these programs back and better than ever, so thank you.
Thank you. I really feel honored to be working with this spectacular group of professionals, and I feel blessed, and I also feel very proud of the work we do for the district and for the Wilton families, and I really was so happy to be a part of this effort all year long. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Great, thanks, Dolores.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, an update on summer facility work? I
Yeah.
know it's fairly short, but.
It is, because we're not doing much, unfortunately. So we have our routine maintenance planned,
Yeah.
and part of that will be putting our classrooms back to the way, they were, pre-March 2020, taking sneeze guards down, doing the routine cleaning, things like that. And then beyond that, we've have in the budget some funds for painting. There's a gate that's being installed to better manage traffic flow over at Miller Driscoll. Cider Mill we're starting the roofing project there, so that's all bonded capital. It's part of the portion of the front side of Cider Mill where the roof is being replaced. We're also finally able to replace that canopy. So that's, that's been on the list for several years, so we're happy that that's going to get done. There's some, additional speakers that will be installed. And then we're addressing some of the motors that are just well beyond their lifespan in the gym over there. At Middlebrook, we've got painting. The restrooms, so as you know, we took those, we had those on, we took them out of the budget. I took them out of the budget and then folded them into the larger plan. Right now, I asked Jose just to get everything ready, and so we're working with Ann and Mary Ann, and if we have additional unencumbered funds, we're hoping to actually go forward with that project this summer, because they're an eyesore. And
Yeah.
one of the benefits of having Jose is, he's just relentless, and so he went back to the vendors, he revised the scope of the project and brought down the cost pretty substantially. So, I think what was originally a $60,000 project, we're not going to address the flooring in those bathrooms, so it brought the cost way down to, I think we're somewhere, 20 to 30,000. So, we'll see where we land when we close out the books this year. And
Okay.
if we have it, we'll do it. If not, then it'll just carry forward when we come back with the major project proposal. And then also,
If I could say
Oh,
that, rather
sure.
than doing it halfway, cheaping out on it, I would prefer to wait until we get the overall big project done and do it right,
well, I'll take
Yeah.
that feedback.
okay?
Yeah.
I mean, the floor, it's okay, but it should be a total redo,
Yeah,
okay?
I'll pass that feedback along. How's that?
Yeah, I know, I mean that sincerely. I mean, I would love to have it redone, but I would rather have it done well, okay? And as part of the major project, if that's the case, then rather than trying to cheap out and do it halfway, okay?
Fair enough. All right, so I'll stand by. I'll come back to you
Okay.
with where we are.
All right.
At the high school, we have an elevator replacement scheduled. So we did an elevator at Middlebrook 2 years ago. I think we have another 3 across the district. So the freight elevator is the second. That'll be done this summer. And then just some minor work. We're extending the Wi-Fi ports in the auditorium. We've got some exterior lights we want to add, and then the soundboard is due for replacement in next week. So really, not too much.
All right.
The next item is reopening plan in progress and draft of the ARP plan. So Kevin, can you explain all that
I can
terminology?
try. So we're, so as you know, we are, busy laying out our plans to fully reopen school when we return at the end of August. The opportunity that's in front of us comes in the form of the funds provided to the state of Connecticut through the American Recovery Program. And so Connecticut on the whole is slated to receive, I think, somewhere around $1.1 billion. Wilton's share of that is $833,000. And so as part of that, 20% must be dedicated to addressing learning recovery. So I think I'll start with what you had. The document I shared with you today is the plan template delivered to us from the state of Connecticut, which was created, I believe, by the federal government. And so the intent of the ARP money is to fully reopen schools. And so when I look at the plan template, there are kind of pre-filled features that don't necessarily apply fully to the state of Connecticut and the schools in Connecticut, and that's because we have been operating in person for the entire school year, and there are many schools in many districts across the country that haven't been. And so you start with, in the plan proposal, all of these features around mitigation strategies. So I've been keeping up with phone calls both with the state and the regional superintendents network, as well as the couple of calls the State Department of Ed has offered so far on guidance and how to develop this plan. The recommendation we received at this point was to keep it as simple as possible, and then there are certain steps we have to take. So let me talk to you first about what's in the plan and what we're thinking about how we'd like to allocate these funds, and then I'll talk to you about the steps that we have to take. So with respect to the mitigation strategies, the advice that we received from the State Department of Ed was, propose in the plan for the time being the strategies you've had in place. And so what I've noted is, in probably each of those things, we will be following state guidance, and whether it's the State Department of Ed or the State Department of Public Health. I don't have a timeline yet for when that guidance will be updated, but what I'm told is it will be updated, and that will be based on local conditions here, relative to COVID across the state. And so, as I'm sure you're all aware, I religiously monitor COVID activity. I have been for months and months, and as of today, we're at, I think, a low since we've been, tracking those metrics. So. Unless something goes sideways, I'm anticipating, we'll continue to be, in a very low COVID spread environment, which is great news. So there's a question about, will masks be mandated or not? That's not known at this point. And so, right now, what we're proposing is we'll follow the guidance, and then, when we get that guidance, we'll evaluate it and see what it says. In terms of physical distancing, we're saying to the extent that it's possible, we'll physical distance, but we're not, I don't believe, we'll be needing to adhere to 3-foot minimums like we were, during the height of the pandemic. So what I'm imagining is, if we have opportunities where we need to spread out because we have, very large groups of people coming together, then, we'll take those opportunities, but, we won't be distancing the way that we have been, all this year. We'll, continue to, retain our hand washing and respiratory etiquette practices. That's just good practice. So, you'll see when you come in and out of our buildings next year, just like you did this year, we'll have the hand sanitizing stations available for people. With respect to cleaning and maintaining healthy facilities, we won't be retaining the additional custodial staff in the way that we had this year. We'll, expect to have the guidance, the DPH guidance on cleaning updated, but we'll be, continuing to disinfect those, high-touch areas as we have, but we won't be doing the kind of deep cleaning so regularly that, we had done earlier in the year. The ventilation, we're also expecting that guidance to be updated, but we've been, ventilating our buildings very thoroughly this year, so we'll expect to, probably not to the same extent, but we'll continue to ventilate pretty robustly as we move forward in the fall. We have a thank you to Maria and our building administrators, Erica Cross. We have a very robust contact tracing protocol in place. So, should we need it, we have it, and we'll go back to it. As you know, we set up diagnostic screening and testing, so we'll have a voluntary option to do that should people elect to. We'll continue that in the fall. We do have, I wrote here the majority of our staff have been vaccinated. Debbie sent me a question about do I have numbers, and I actually don't because we didn't survey the staff. What I have is when we initially surveyed the folks, we had an incredibly high interest. We know we had high participation in the local vaccination clinic, and we also know that we had many others who went out and got vaccinated on their own. So I feel confident in that statement. We can talk about whether or not we want to survey and solicit what those numbers are, but we haven't done that yet. With
Kevin,
respect,
are you even able to do that for HIPAA reasons?
we've been very sensitive to the privacy
Right.
concerns, and so that's why we've elected not to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so different districts have operated differently.
Could it be anonymous?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I don't really care
Yeah.
who, but it'd be nice
Yeah.
to know 80% of our staff is vaccinated, or, whatever. I
Yeah.
just wonder.
We always ask, they don't have to respond.
Yeah,
That's
well, if
fine.
it's
Voluntarily
anonymous,
should.
then maybe that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and I think we have the the information we have the town information that gets reported to us
Okay.
through the
Okay.
State Department
Sure.
of Public Health, and so that's something Maria and I can talk about. If we wanted to do that, how we would go about doing that, and then we'll provide vaccination information as it's made available. I'm expecting, at some point in the next few months, we'll receive information about vaccination availability for children under the age of 12. And so certainly, we'll share that as it becomes available. We have established policies that address accommodations for our children with disabilities, and so those will remain in place. And I think that's, generally speaking, our suite of mitigation strategies. So the ARP plan, the ARP proposal really spoke to this idea of continuity of services, and I think the intention there, that's not Wilton Public School language, that's either state or federal government language, and really what that speaks to is fully reopening schools and providing the complement of services and support, whether they're education, medical support, social emotional support, health and nutrition support. But the plan is looking to, is calling to speak to those things. So for us, we're really focused on learning, unfinished learning, and addressing intervention needs, as well as providing additional support for social, emotional, and mental health needs of students. And so some of these activities you're already aware of. We have a suite of activities that we're launching beginning next week. So we have extended academic intervention services for students in grades K to 11. Chuck has spoken to you about that previously. We're launching a high school summer enrichment program. And then for our administrators and staff later in July, we are engaging with the Connecticut Center for School Change, where we'll be participating in professional learning around this accelerated learning framework. And in a nutshell, the idea here is to just ensure that our systems and practices are aligned with delivering key grade level curriculum. And so any content recovery we have to do, we do that while we are delivering grade level curriculum. And so there's a framework that's been established, and there's another component related to that really focuses on task design, and so really thinking very critically about the daily lessons that teachers develop and implement, and holding a critical lens to those lessons to ensure that the tasks are tied to standards and truly at grade level. Related to that piece is another progress monitoring and data tracking and data response component that is folded into that we'll be also continuing to develop. As we think about the fall and students returning, we've already spoken about using some of these funds to provide additional classroom staff. In fact, we've already dedicated some funds to doing that, so we've hired additional staff at Millard Driscoll. We continue to watch the enrollment at Cider Mill, thinking we may see a surge there at some point this summer. So some of the funds will be dedicated to those staff members. We're also looking at providing supplemental support services before and after school, so some wraparound services, very much the way that we provided them in the spring of this year. So just some additional opportunities in literacy and mathematics. And, as I talk about intervention and some of these other programs, those are the two areas that we're targeting primarily. And then within the school day, we're looking to take advantage of using some part-time hourly interventionists to provide additional support in the classroom alongside classroom teachers to really pull smaller groups and focus on discrete skill development during the school day. And so we're looking at having interventionists across the district, primarily at the two lower schools, but also at Middlebrook as well. Chuck, alongside the high school administration, is looking at developing and implementing an SAT preparation program specifically for our junior class. There was, some questions raised, and that looked like an opportunity to dovetail curriculum with some core math and literacy skill needs. And then we have a proposal to add some additional mental health service support through a contract with an organization out of Norwalk, Family and Children's Agency. There's a lot of question about, what are we going to see when kids return in the fall? And so there's a widely held expectation that we're going to see, some increased levels of generalized anxiety among our students as they return to school, coming out of the pandemic year here. And so through a contract with Family and Children's Agency, we have access to a full suite of mental health services, counseling. We get to be at the front of the line for referring, and then we also have access to their ICAPS program, which is intensive in-home psychiatric services for students who present as acute. And that's, as you know, as we've talked about earlier this year, that's been a gap for us. And so we've really had to scramble with some of our other community partners to try to make sure that our kids are able to be seen in a timely manner. With all of that, I will just say, while $831,000 is fabulous, it goes very quickly when we start to talk about adding temporary staff and addressing salaries. And so we've looked at this, and we're trying to focus in the short term on really skilling kids up and as soon as they get back into the mix. So some of these interventions we're looking at is probably short term. And so as we get deeper into the school year, to the conversation we were having before, the learning data that we get back is really going to be instructive in terms of what steps need to be taken next as we move through the late winter, early spring of next year. In terms of process, so the way this is, the way we're obligated, we develop a draft plan, and then we put it out through a series of venues for public comment. So the first go is here with you tonight, and we'll certainly be revisiting this. We will post the plan on our website. I'll also be embedding this in a survey that I will send out for all of our families to comment on. We'll send it to Andrew Nixaji in the WEA. We'll send it to the PTA presidents, and we'll just, we'll invite feedback, and, I'll gather that feedback over the next couple of months. We'll look at that, and then, if we have to make adjustments, we'll make adjustments. The application for the funds will be due later in August. And so, this is a pretty generalized plan, and then we'll get, very specific in the actual application where we'll be, targeting the real specifics, the specific number of interventions, the dollar amount, the kind of SMART goals that are associated with what we're expecting to achieve as a result of, using folks like that. That'll be really pretty involved.
Does the board ultimately need to approve this when it's ready in August, or no?
That wasn't a provision, no.
Okay.
The $800,000 is an ESSER grant. That's already done, correct?
The 800 is the ARP grant.
Is ARP.
Yeah,
I
800
thought
is ARP.
I thought it was ESSER.
ESSER, so people conflate ESSER and ARP. There was
It's been referred to in our
ESSER
meetings
1,
as ESSER.
ESSER 2, and ARP. So ESSER 2, we received, I think, $360,000.
Okay.
And those funds, we are using to hire
Middle Driscoll staff.
an
Right.
interventionist and the half-time counselor here at the high school.
And so we have funds coming to us from ARP. We know for sure.
Yes, that's what this plan is. It's the $831,000.
Over and above what we've gotten from the ESSER already.
Correct. Right. Some people refer to this as ESSER 3, Glenn,
Okay.
and it's.
Yeah, that's why it's
actually
confusing.
accurate.
It's confusing. So if the guidelines come out, okay, at some point in the future, and guidelines say that to come back to school, you have to be masked, and we say, no. Enough is enough already with the masking, okay? It's proven, it doesn't, and we don't do that, is that $800,000 at risk?
It's a great question, and if it was a condition in the application, then yes, of course.
Right, so I think people need to understand, we need to be very clear about that, because I will tell you that the expectation, I'm sure, among most of our parents is that we're going to be able to come back to school in the fall as before, fully normal, no mask, et cetera. But if the plan says, nope, sorry guys, you're going to have to eat masks again until we tell you otherwise, then we put that $800,000 would then be at risk.
Yeah, I think that's something, where what's embedded in the, the plan guidelines
Yeah.
is reliance on
Follow these guidelines,
the
right?
State Department of Education guidance, the, State Department of Public Health guidance, and so
Okay. So it's a big decision that to be made.
we'll have to, we're gonna
Yeah.
watch what's happening this summer.
Okay.
And, I think, what we saw previously as well is that the State Department of Education, turned around to local health authorities and left it to,
Okay.
more local decision-making, and so.
Hopefully, and ours will say, okay, fine.
Yeah,
But
I
just-
think, the guidance hasn't been published yet, so I
I know.
can't tell you what's in it.
No, I know. But we just need to be ready in the event that it should come negatively from what we're expecting.
Yeah, and I think, as I've said before.
I wouldn't be surprised.
With the exception of masking.
Yeah.
Because that is an unknown at this point.
Yeah. Everything else makes sense. Everything else we were doing, okay, my concern is the masking requirement. We could do the other stuff. But there's so many parents in our system who are so ready to give it up and have begged for us to give it up. It's just, and rightfully so. Particularly the little kids who don't see you smile.
But the good news is, we
It's
have,
critical.
the masking requirements have already loosened, so as you know, for outdoors, and so
Yeah.
we took advantage of that as soon as we were
Okay.
able to.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, anyway, sorry, I don't want
Yeah,
to take it.
and I think it's a little premature to conjecture.
Yeah, no, I
until
know.
August.
But, yeah,
I just
okay.
think we need a little bit more time.
Do you
All
have
right.
any reason to believe that this money would be linked to what we decide as a town regarding masks?
I think that the money will be linked to guidance, to adopting the guidance, and so, what I understand today is that conditions locally will drive decision-making.
Okay,
All right, okay,
okay.
just be ready. I'm usually very optimistic. In this case, I'm not a big optimist about how things are going to come down.
So we're moving in the right direction.
Oh, I know.
All of the indicators
Yeah,
are very,
I know.
very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think you
Okay.
have reason to be optimistic.
Yeah.
I certainly am.
Okay. Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, moving on to action items. we have seen the portrait of the graduate in the work in compiling it, and then the Board of Ed had a workshop, and we also had a meeting, it was on our agenda last time. So, are there any further comments, questions,
We
et
just got
cetera, before we take?
these 3 additional changes from our last, or not?
These were the changes that we made as a result of the workshop.
Right,
You've seen them
okay,
already.
Got it, okay, good, that's what.
Yeah, those were,
Okay.
they were highlighted last meeting.
All right. I move we approve and adopt the portrait as developed as it stands.
Can I make one very picky comment?
Of course.
So most of our statements start with possesses, articulates, improves, communicates, engages, and then we hit some that say develop, is able to. I think there's only 2 places where it changed, actually there's 3, because then later on it says skillfully transfers. Is there a way for us to be consistent all the way down?
Sure.
Or
So
if nobody cares, then it's fine, it's more of a personal pickiness.
So you want to add an S?
Yep,
All right, so develop,
yep. But then changing is able to listen, we would say
listens.
listens.
listens with
Right.
compassion, understanding.
Listens with compassion.
And changing skillfully transfers, so you could say transfers past learning into new situations skillfully.
Yep, just put skillfully in a different place.
Well done.
All right,
With those changes,
Sorry,
no, that's, then I move we adopt the portrait of the graduate.
okay. Is there a second?
second.
Thanks, Mandy. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, approved.
Well
Thank
done. Yeah, it's well
Yes.
done. It's a lot of work, but
A
well
lot
done.
of minds around this,
Yeah.
yes, so, thank you. The next item is appointment of someone to fill our Board of Ed vacancy. And just very quickly to summarize that we want to thank Gretchen Jeans for her service on the board and wish her well as she moves to Florida. It does create a vacancy for us, and I've recommended in a memo to you that Laura Schwem be appointed to that vacancy. As you know, Laura has been a board member from 2011 to 2019. She was on the Teaching and Learning Committee. She was also secretary and then later vice chair. So I think we're lucky to have someone who's interested and has the time to commit the effort that it's going to take to be on the board for the next few months.
Okay. It doesn't say that. There's nothing in here that says this is temporary.
Yes, it is a vacancy, and
But it
then
doesn't say that.
by town charter, we can't go any further than that.
Well, yeah, you can appoint somebody to fill an unexpired term.
No, we can't. We can't.
It happened to me.
You're only good, if you will, until the next general election, which happens in November. And even if that wasn't true, Gretchen's term is up in November.
Okay, all right, okay, fine. All right, okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure technically we're good. Okay.
Yes.
All right, okay.
It is only to fill until.
Until the November election, the next
Until
election.
Gretchen's term expires.
Okay. If we could just make that,
Okay.
comment in here, that'd be fine. Okay, because it doesn't say that.
To fill the vacancy on the Board of Education, until Gretchen's term had
Until the
expired?
expiration,
Okay,
until the expiration of that term.
okay.
Yeah, just something like that. I mean, just technically, it would make sense to do that. Okay?
Sure.
And I think it's great. Glad she's coming back.
All right, that the Board of Education appoint Laura Schwem to fill the vacancy on the Board of Ed created by the June 15th resignation of member Gretchen Jeans until expiration of such term.
Right, period.
How's that?
Yeah, perfect.
Of such term.
Okay, perfect.
You're doing the lawyer and me proud.
Hey, we got a lawyer, what am I doing this for?
It was the right question to ask, huh?
Yeah. I still think the town charter doesn't let you go beyond the next election, but that's just me. Okay, so that recommendation, is there a motion to adopt that recommendation?
Do you have a second?
So moved.
So, did I hear a second?
I didn't hear it first.
So you need a motion.
Yes.
Did. Oh, so
All right.
moved.
And is there-
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Meeting calendar. And as I pointed out earlier, this meeting calendar does not put any July meetings on it, so we don't have to cancel July meetings, there just aren't July meetings.
Right.
Unless Kevin, and this is always true, wanted to call a special Board of Ed meeting.
Which
So is
could happen
there,
anytime.
yeah, is there a motion to approve the Board of Ed meeting calendar for 21-22?
So moved.
Thank you, Ruth. Second, Mandy, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved.
And
We already talked
subsequent
about,
committee calendars will come later.
Yes, the committee calendars. And also maybe just formatting suggestion was to highlight, put stars around, whatever, light up the Board of Ed dates on the district calendar.
Yeah, I
I'm just kidding, Lucille,
No.
but somehow highlight
I
it.
heard that in the workshop when I was watching.
Okay.
I actually have a calendar similar to the district calendar for you guys with all of the meetings and the committee meetings.
Okay.
So-
Okay,
Okay.
all right, and I
put it
think,
on the website as well.
perfect, yeah, and this was also just to help the
The parents,
public.
when they print out the yearly calendar,
Sure.
they have it in one place.
All right.
All right, Lucille, are there comments from the public?
Take a final look. If there were none, I just looked a minute ago.
One was just sent.
Yeah, hold on. It's just labeled my comment. Jared Martin. I reject all concepts of equity as they are rooted in Inram X. Kendi's hypothetical prose. I will not allow our town to become racist. All the science regarding masks shows there is no basis to continue. Jared T. Martin. And then he followed it up with a second, Ibram to be clear. And that is all.
Okay, thank you. And as I say, with all public comment, the board does not directly respond, but follows up as appropriate. Any further public comment? That was it, Lucille?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda, and then I adjourn the meeting. So everyone have a wonderful summer.
I see you in
And
August.
Thanks to our camera crew for being here tonight. So, thank you.
See you in August.
All right, thank you. And goodbye to the Zoom
Zoom crowd,
participants.
Bye-bye.